we released the white paper today, which we've been doing a lot of work on for the last year, putting America back on track, the case for the 21st century public rail system. And I hope that you all have had a chance to look at it. If not, I'm going to try and see if I can put a copy or a link to it in your chat. On this, I want to say it's the 17th of this month. There will be a webinar on it. So what I mean, white papers are these policy documents, and they're highly researched and whatnot like that. And the purpose of this one was sort of like a three-part whammy. We had some research done on the legal ramifications and the legal questions that are associated with public ownership of the rails. And then we also have a working document, which is not ready yet, but hopefully will be by the end of the summer, on the what's called an economic impact study or economic feasibility study. This is the middle one. This is the one that basically just takes you through the history of at least the 20th century, and the argument, not how private railroad not just failed at the moment, but historically failed, and the history of it, and the documentation of it, and the numbers, and everything like that. And of course, for the purposes of some of the conversations we've been having about safety, our argument is that you can't trust the private owners whose first and foremost priority is quick money right now at all expense, no matter what. And so that argument is made there in the paper. And if you read it and you are convinced by it, which I think it's a very convincing document, hopefully you'll spread it around and see that everybody learns it and incorporate some of the details in your own conversations. Just to let you know, I had a big conversation. I can't go into specifics, but with a regulator, a FRA regulator, about some things in Washington, D.C. that the corporations are trying to do that are basically just speculative, solely for the purpose of saving time and money. And they want to basically just disregard previous rules. And these are particularly important rules that could get railroad workers killed. That has to do with what you do when you got to have people get in between equipment and stuff like that. And the protections that historically we've had to fight for. And now they're basically just saying, well, we want a waiver, and they're going to ask for a waiver so that they don't have to do that stuff because they can save 3 minutes or something like that. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I do think I could make an argument that all of our concerns do roll up to the question of whether or not the public stake, and the public stake includes stuff like not spilling hazardous materials and things like that. That public stake can only be protected when it's a real public stake, when it's not us on the outside going, how come you get to do whatever you want to the carriers? We did a lot of work on this, and one young hotshot guy in particular did a lot of work. But it was a collective effort, and it does represent real scholarship on this question. And one of the main points is that not only is the railroad messed up today, but that it's been messed up over and over and over again throughout its history. In the beginning, it required public stake in order to get started. And at every point along the way, it has routinely had to have the public stake reintroduced. The question is, how is it done? How's it? And we've had crappy examples like Conrail or Canadian National or things like that. They were still an effort to make sure that we elevated the public stake. And so what we're trying to do now is to make it clear. So it starts, for example, I don't know if it starts with it, but it spends a certain amount of time talking about the Plum Plan, which was 100 years ago, around the time of the First World War, when the government took over running the railroad. And one of the interesting things about it is that if you read about it, you'll see that all of the railroad unions after the fact were in favor of making it permanent, making that situation permanent, and how much improvement there was and how much better efficiency and safety and everything there was. But they couldn't get the popular sentiment to turn around on that question. And so we ended up losing it. And I think this is an interesting situation because today we actually have the reverse situation, which is that there are a lot of forces, significant forces in the public that want a better, more robust public state. And the unions are like, well, I don't know. We like to, bargain over wages and benefits. So, so that's an ironic thing, but it's still something that you have to be armed with the facts in order to be able to talk to people about it. So
Well, even with
that's my
public
pitch.
ownership, you'd still be able to bargain collectively, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, but my point is it takes leadership. Yeah, in other words, so for example, most of the kind of problems that we collectively have talked about where they want to do single person crews or they want to do remote control or they want to do longer and heavier or whatever like that, the current status of things is that the unions will say, well, that's a decision for the board of directors to make. And then whatever they do, we'll negotiate with them over wages and benefits. And what I'm talking about is a more robust, a more powerful role in leadership on these questions that has to be taken by the unions. Then there is, if you really want it done, you're going to have to step up and do the leadership work. You all know this from your own experience, because the parties that are in charge now are not going to do that. They're not going there because it's all about money. So anyway, I think we will win on this. It's an ironic thing that say the carriers are sometimes our best organizers because they're so greedy and so ridiculous and so often incompetent that they create circumstances that you can't just let go. You can't just tolerate it.